Hello friends, and welcome back to the Mothership. Today I'm going to show you one of my favorite grill recipes, and that is maple bourbon steak tips. Let's get started. Alright, first things first, we need to get a marinade going. Let's start with some brown sugar, some bourbon. Don't use the good stuff, guys, it's just going to go to waste. So I always have a little bit of just the plastic bottle stuff for cooking lying around the house because I don't want to drink it, and it's perfect for cooking applications. I'm also going to add some soy sauce, some Worcestershire sauce, and then lastly, some maple syrup. I always use the real stuff, guys. You don't want just the corn sugar that they call maple syrup. You want something real. And being that I'm from the Northeast, I'm partial to Vermont. But you know what? Canadian maple syrup is also very, very good. Then I'm just going to get this nice and mixed together, try and get some of that sugar dissolved in there. I know it's not going to be complete, but get as much as I can. Now I'm going to set this aside and let's get our steak tips all set. Now for steak, I tend to use Petite sirloin, which is kind of that tenderloin, but it's on the other side and it's, I guess, smaller. It doesn't have as much fat or is not as tender usually as like a filet mignon, but it's a really good cut for steak tips. I'm going to take anything really hard and gross off, so just this hard piece of fat right here that we're probably not going to eat, that's going to come off. And then the goal is to cut these into like 2-inch by 1-inch strips. So kind of like so. That's perfect. Kind of like so. I might be able to get 3 out of this side. Yep. It doesn't need to be perfect, guys. In fact, you could even cube them. Sometimes I just cube them like so. I'm going to keep these in the strips. And I think I can get some out of this last one too. Yeah, perfect. And so, just like all marinades, guys, we're just going to toss these into our little mixture. Now the salt and sugar in this is going to start to break down some of the harder connective tissue, and it's going to make it a little more tender. I usually help it out a little bit by once I get it into my container, I'm just going to smack it a bunch of times, try and tenderize it myself. If you have a tenderizer, you could use that now, but just get them a little smack down, get some nice tenderization of the meat. And then just make sure everything is completely coated, and this goes back into the fridge. As far as timing, anything from about 5 hours to 24 hours I find works. We don't have a ton of salt in this, so you can let it go for that 24 hours. If we're doing, like, say, my Asian marinade that I might show you guys one of these days, I tend to do that a little bit less time because otherwise it does start to break down a bit. But this should be good for up to 24 hours, so you can make this tonight and cook it off tomorrow. It's the morning now, so we're only going to do about 12 hours, but that should be enough time. If you have the time and you're by your fridge, you could always go in there and mix it around a little bit, make sure that everything stays nice and coated. But yeah, we'll come back when it's time to throw these onto the grill. It's time to cook me some dinner. I have my SNS slow and sear, that's what I'm going to use to cook these. Just going to do, honestly, about a, I don't know, quarter of my chimney because I have a whole bunch of charcoal that I put on my last cook. Full charcoal is what I usually do if you're just going fresh. Get as much heat in there as possible. We really just want to sear these off, get them to like barely 125, 130 degrees. That'll be enough to cook these to the point that I want. Obviously, if you like your steaks more well done, I don't want to be negative, but that sounds awful, but you do you. Cook them to where you want. We need to get this nice and roasty toasty, so I'm going to get the charcoal going. Okay, this is obviously plenty warm, so get my little pigtail in there. I'm just going to let these heat up, and then we'll get ready to actually cook these steak tips off. Our grill is rip-roaring hot, which means it's time to toss these suckers on. Since I'm using the SNS Easy Spin grates, I'm going to throw them on the cool side. And then before I spin this sucker, I'm actually just going to toss a couple of nice wood chips on there. Get a little bit of smoke going. And now I'm going to spin this, and the goal is just to sear everything off. So I'm not even going to close it. We're just going to wait for everything to get nice and hot. Sear on either side, and then I'm going to move it back onto the cool side. It's called reverse sear if it's your first time doing this kind of thing. Basically, you're going to sear it first and then bring up the temperature on the cool side of the grill. So, let these suckers sear off now. Now probing these. These are about 80, 90 degrees, which means they need a little bit of time to come up to temp. Since they are seared off, I'm just going to close the grill. So I'm going to leave the vents on the opposite side of the heat. The fire is going to have all its smoke come across, heat come across, come up over here, which leaves a nice cool side over here, let some smoke come across. But the fire and the most intense heat is going to be on this side, so we're going to bring up the temperature slowly over here. Because once I let them rest, there is going to be a holdover of about 5 to 10 degrees where the temperature just moves up. So I'm going to let them do their thing, pull them off maybe around 120, 125. Now, I have lived in New England for most of my life, and I really didn't realize until recently that steak tips are a pretty New England thing. If you go to any pub or bar or local restaurant in the area, anywhere around Boston, you're gonna find steak tips. The tried and true is the salt and pepper, but you're gonna find teriyaki everywhere. You're gonna find a bourbon, maple bourbon, all kinds of different flavors. I have a couple different recipes. This is one of them. And basically you're taking a pretty good cut of sirloin and you are just cutting it into little chunks, marinating it for a long time. Let that marinade really tenderize the meat and then just cooking them off hot on a grill. It is a good bar food around here, and it's crazy that this isn't everywhere else in the country. But the proof is in the pudding, guys. I'm starving. Let me show you what we're working with here. So here is one of our little steaky tips. You can see it's got a nice color to it. It's nice and charred, nice and seared on each side. I'm really starving like always, so it's time to give it the old-fashioned chomp. Honestly, you can't beat this. The maple is really good. You really have a good taste of bourbon. This is why I like this recipe. Salt is there from that soy sauce that we threw in there. This is such a good recipe. If you're looking for a fairly quick recipe, you just have to marinate this overnight really and then just sear it off on the grill. What's easier than that? This is a perfect weeknight cook, and using it on the Weber kettle could not be easier. Guys, I want to do more of these quick weekday cooks because you know what? We all work and we all want something quick that we can throw on the grill, especially when the hot summer months are coming on. So I'm going to do more stuff like this. If you guys like these kind of quick and fast recipes, let me know down below. If you guys do steak tips, also let me know down below. If you've never had them before, please let me know also down below. I have a couple different recipes coming up, but steak tips are one of our favorites. Pair them with some mashed potatoes, pair them with French fries, whatever you want. They're a great food. Most importantly, guys, if you could hit that like, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. And as always, cook something fantastic, and I will see you on the next barbecue. Bye-bye.